Here's a question from the audience. What do you think is the best method to learn a new language? For example, the Thai language. The best method to learn a new language is first to know the meaning of life, and then to understand how that language fits into your own process of living a more meaningful life. And that will motivate you and that will reward you at every step along the way. I used to be married to an anthropologist, and a lot of what makes reading the Pali Canon rewarding and dealing with the original ancient language and the gap with the English is anthropological in nature. Like, you learn things about how marriage worked in ancient India. You learn things about attitudes towards war and soldiers. This kind of cultural study, piece by piece, you start to get a sense for, you start to get a feeling for how that culture worked. And nobody studies Buddhist philosophy for that reason. And again, I got to give credit to my ex-wife, my first wife. If I hadn't fallen in love with her, would I have found that rewarding? Like, what did I really enjoy about that anthropological aspect of studying ancient Buddhism in ancient India and studying Pali? Maybe what I enjoyed about it was sitting down to eat dinner with my wife and talk about those things there, because she was really interested in it, and she could offer contrasting examples, like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting because in this period of time in China, this is how there was a marriage ceremony that was in some ways different or some ways similar, and here's an anecdote from Papua New Guinea. Her background in anthropology, to some extent, she had examples from around the world, from different cultures, because that's what anthropologists do. That's what they read about and talk about, right? So, like, the study of ancient Pali made sense within that marriage, within the life I was living, flying around the world, meeting other intellectuals, even if a lot of them were pseudo-intellectuals and were terrible people, still meeting other intellectuals connected to anthropology, meeting people who cared about the history and politics of Asia, cared about culture and even fine arts and museology in Asia, right? And people who cared about Buddhism, even if they didn't really know what it was they cared about. So look, I kind of had this wonderful jet-setting life with my first wife, flying around the world and encountering these people. And some of those encounters were very tense and very nasty. There's a lot of conflict. And whether or not I learned anything from the conflict is debatable. Like, when I was in Cambodia, I heard several papers presented by people with PhDs in anthropology in person, face to face, and then talked to the presenter and talked to other people at the event. So even in Cambodia, I had that kind of intellectual life, not just in Cambridge, England, not just in France. What does it mean to make the commitment to learn a language because of the other people who speak that language, right? And then what does it mean to make that commitment for the sake of the language itself? Because you feel this language is worth learning, period. The best method to learn a new language is first to know the meaning of life, and then to understand how that language fits into your own process of living a more meaningful life. And that will motivate you and that will reward you at every step along the way.